So I'm just going to skip over some of Outpost 3J by Jeremy War. And that's not because it's a passage map, but because of the fact that Bluff Eversmoking takes up so much time. But although Outpost 3J is a rather small map, there is something very important about it. This is pretty much the only map whose architecture and appearance comes from the Scar texture pack, excluding of course the Scar mothership maps. And I want you to notice how different this map is from a couple of the other maps, such as the Lab, Extreme Lab, or Extreme Gen, or Generator in the Scar mothership. Now let me explain this. This map, it does not make an effort to restrict the player into small hallways, corridors, and albeit they might have detail, they're still uninteresting. That's the important part. And because of the fact that the mothership being the last of the Unreal levels, it should have been something huge, and was instead placed into existence as an uninspiring idea. And let me just give you an example of this. For example, the final maps in Half-Life were not necessarily well developed architecturally in terms of visual constructs and things like that, but they were grand, such as the boss fight. The same thing happened with Half-Life 2, Gears of War. These are just some of the games that I can come up with right now that sort of fit that description. The end levels were grand, they were impacting, and they left a mark. That's what the final levels in Unreal lacked, and it's kind of a big light really in comparison to other games, and that's where it sort of fell short. So anyway, Outpost 3J doesn't have this missing characteristic that the Scar mothership maps don't have, but it has similar characteristics. Outpost 3J has interesting ideas. For example, in Outpost 3J, for a generator, you have a big weird cylindrical thing that actually comes off as interesting. The Scar mothership, the laboratory is composed of mostly computer panels and homes. Where did all the entertainment go? That's the question I'm asking. Now, I'm not going to explain why the mothership maps ultimately failed until I get to them. I just wanted to point out that Outpost 3J has some ideas. It's not entirely a perfect map that the other map should have been, but it does have some ideas that the mothership maps should have complemented, or at least they should have made ideas more creative than Outpost 3J. By the way, there is a secret, or at least I think there is around here. When you go upstairs, you have the chance to push one of those monk statues above you to the ground, and one of them will have a super health, unless I'm thinking of another campaign or something like that.
Excuse me, but I change. The whole boogie has made me sweaty. Yeah, sweaty.
Headshot.
So once you go into the portal, you will find yourself in Valora Pass, and once more, the name says it all. This is basically another passage map. Except here you have to kill a stone titan, and he's not much different from any other titan. Just keep shooting and dragging him around one of the fireplace things, pillars, and you'll be fine. In fact, I had no problems doing this whatsoever. It's just a matter of controlling him. Now, I'd like to point out something right here. I somehow lost most of the videos for Bluff Eversmoking that I made recently. And the save, of course, for Bluff Eversmoking by Mission of the Sledgehog. But I did find an older save, and I decided just to use that. So that's why the armor and everything is different. Now, this map is just grand. I mean, in less than a minute, the atmosphere really shows itself. You're up on a bridge onto a bluff high above the water, and you can already hear the wind whip around you. If any map should have Unreal pasted on it, this should be the one. In fact, I'd argue for this map to be on the flyby instead of the Anali Castle. I'd just add a bit more buildings and such, add more detail. The architecture isn't anything too complex, but neither is it something that the player can see. Misha adds some new appearances to the underground rooms and the rooms above. In fact, it doesn't even seem as grungy as the textures are. It uses a lot of the same textures as Dark Arena, yet gets away with its own sort of feeling. And this is mostly due to the lighting and additional non-grungy textures that sort of add an enlightening contrast to those old boring ones we've seen for so long. Even more so, the music is not dark, as it were, such as Dark Arena. And the incentive behind the music seems to be to emphasize the grandeur or excitement in the map, rather than the mostly inexistent grim atmosphere. Not only does it have conceptual grandness, I mean, after seeing the hallways in the Sunspire, I think that it's a relief to see a map with great detail and the ability to implement great conceptual grandness. The interior of this map is the exact opposite of the Sunspire. Okay, so far we've covered the fact that it takes in its own conceptual grandness and avoids the lack of detail that the Sunspire had. Let me also point out that Misha goes to great efforts to add translator events that are actually interesting, or at least have something more than just directional signs. In fact, you could say that this map has its own little subplot. Now, the gameplay seems to be more on the soft side, to be honest. Maybe I've been playing on godlike difficulty in UT for too long, but I really don't see the challenge here. This map doesn't have combat events or anything like that much. but it's not terrible. It's definitely not terrible. I think that there should have been more monsters or something more challenging, to be honest. However, I gave Atmosphere a 5, Conceptual Grandness a 5, Gameplay 3, Visual Impact 4, and Storyline Implementation 5, which gives us an overall rating of 4.4 out of 5. And to be honest, I think this is the highest rating that I'm going to rate out of all the Unreal maps. Okay, so let me point out two things here. The first is there's actually a reference to Mission of the Sled Dog in one of the Gravestone Translator events. Second of all, when it tells you to face the sun, I don't even know exactly what it means. I mean, how do you face that sun? Do you go on the one behind it or something? Anyway, you just go on the right when you're facing the opposite. Then that'll open the tombstone thing. And down there you will actually find a good amount of supplies, thanks to that Nelly Ghost thing. There was actually also a armor set behind one of the walls. It's hidden, but the mover that was supposed to open it actually doesn't even move it. It's not triggered by anything, so I guess that was another mapper's mistake. So there's sort of a tricky part after you go underground. I think it's the second level from the top. After defeating the crawl, there's the option to just walk around up top, which you're not really supposed to do. And by the way, you could also actually, if you have a great amount of shield and armor, if you have 300 armor and 100 or 200 health, you'll definitely make it. What you do is basically go on the edge of the bluff and just jump towards that rail thing that leads you to the next map. That's cheating. Just so you know, if you want to get through this map, there's pretty much the easiest way. There is a point, I don't know if it's that where I'm standing, but there was a point where if you jump off, you'll definitely not die if you have plenty of health and armor. Okay, so as I was saying, after you open all the jail doors and everything, what you're supposed to do is go under the stairs where there's a crucified Nelly, and under there you'll find a little passage under the water, and that will actually lead you to the inner walls of the castle, or whatever you want to call it, of Bluff Eversmoking. And that's pretty much the only way to get inside and continue. I used to spend an extra 30 or 40 minutes just finding out where you're supposed to go. So yeah, just so you know, that's where you're supposed to go.
Fear me. Useless.
Okay, so here comes another somewhat tricky part. Because of the fact that really you can't disable those laser things, that whatever you want to call it, you just jump on that. I mean, it's sort of obvious, but you know, sometimes people get stuck there. And just so you know, that's the way. Okay, so after that, you go all the way back. Try not to fall off the elevator. You go all the way back either up top or go to the top and then just make your way down to the bottom. But if you just want to go up top and just jump off, that's fine. I'm going to go where there's actually an entrance to jump off. That's where I killed those two brutes with the sniper rifle. That's probably the best way to do it, because then you get back to the bottom of the bluff, and there you will find the area, the passageway where the lasers or electricity was previously blocking that passageway. Now it'll be open, and that will basically lead you to eventually to the tower where you disable or enable the tram and to just go on it. And of course there's a bunch of SCAR troopers down there. And once more, the SCAR troopers are pretty much the same as SCAR warriors. Obviously they're a bit more challenging because they actually have the same weapons you do. And really, it's sort of the same way you combat Unreal Tournament bots, which are harder. So if you do play more, it'll be easier for you anyway. For example, you sort of, what I do, just counter their weapon. That's the easiest way to sort of defeat them. For example, if you have the rocket launcher, you just improvise and try to shoot around the corners. If they have the sniper rifle or something like that, an instant shot weapon. And if they don't, if they have the stinger, things like that, you use a faster weapon. And if you don't have that option, you once again you improvise and just use a gun that could ricochet or sort of take the advantage. For example, they have rocket launchers here, so all I'm going to do is use a sniper rifle and I should be fine. Because obviously, like I said before, the sniper rifle is obviously faster than rocket launchers. You should not have a problem with killing them. In fact, you shouldn't be damaged whatsoever.